Submit it to John to open with Karakia.
Morena, tuia ki ranga, tuia ki raro, tuia ki roto, tuia ki waho, tuia tata te tangata, ki te kaupapa o te huene, ki te kaupapa o te rangine, mali ora, kia tata katoa.
Thanks for that, and welcome to everybody. Just a bit of housekeeping. So we've got Councillor Greening and Councillor Hill on Zoom. Just remember to keep your microphones off and turn your camera off until you want to speak. We've got a number of other people, so toilets are outside if we get an earthquake underneath the table. So first of all, we'll go to apologies. I've got apologies this morning from Councillor McKenzie, Deputy Mayor Bryant and Councillor Shellcrest. Would someone like to move Councillor Murray? And a seconder?
Seconder.
Councillor Butler. I'll put that. All those in favour, please say aye. Against, carried. I just welcome Board Member Dixon to the table. Nice to see you again, Henry. And we've got one person speaking in public forum. Timo, welcome. If you'd like to come forward now. And I think you know the drill. 5 minutes. And I know you've got a briefing from the governance people for your talk. Okay, so I've got a timer. I'll let you know at about, 4.5? And you'll be used to the timers after this week anyway.
Well trained now. Thanks, Kit. Good morning, Mayor. Good morning, councillors. And thank you for letting me speak to you today. You know, I'm a bit concerned about Plan Change 81. I don't really agree with the blanket planning approach taken for intensification, the rezoning of fertile land to housing in Mapua, Motueka and many other settlements throughout the district, but that's not my focus today. My comments today focus on the proposed rezoning of highly productive land between Hope and Richmond into business and industrial. Well, Councillor Mailing may downplay it as affecting only 6 or 8 properties along the main road, but these properties form a strategic greenbelt that separates Hope from Richmond, and rezoning this fertile land sets a precedent that threatens our community's identity. Now, across the future development strategy consultation, the Reimagining Richmond South engagement, the local meetings culminating in a 400 signature strong petition presented to this council earlier this year, our community has been absolutely clear. We oppose industrial and business rezoning in Hope. But consultation is not meaningful if community feedback is simply set aside to justify predetermined outcomes. Well, let's talk about the caretaker period. Your own Audit and Risk Committee is aware that major decisions should be paused during the election lead-up. Why does this Mayor and leadership team not act accordingly? Growth and development are amongst the hottest election topics. Shouldn't the incoming council with a fresh mandate be the ones to make this generational call? A streamlined planning process with limited community recourse does the opposite of this. Confidentiality. The Parliamentary Ombudsman has already reprimanded TDC for excessive use of confidential sessions. Why is this decision being taken behind closed doors? Is it because we actually are in a pre-election period and neither the Mayor nor councillors feel comfortable being on record for approving the notification of this plan change unchanged? How does that sit with transparency and with showing voters your true position just weeks before the elections? The evidence. Council's own housing and business assessment shows projected business land supply exceeding projected demand by more than 6 times in the next decade and close to 10 times by 2054. These figures don't even take into account the swathes of business and industrial land now available from the closure of businesses around the district, Eves Valley Sawmill, just to name one. If oversupply is already this high, why rezone more, especially in a highly contested area like Hope? Finally, the Waimea Plains. This land is not just rural, it's productive, irrigable land downstream of the $211 million Waimea Dam. Ratepayers were told the dam was an intergenerational investment to safeguard this land. Irrigators already complain that dam water is too expensive. If we reduce irrigable land and shareholders, will the scheme collapse? Will ratepayers be forced into a bailout? Is this really the direction TDC wants to take? Councillors, rezoning decisions are irreversible. Economic conditions change, forecasts change. But once productive land is gone, it's gone forever. This council should not gamble on risky growth projections when studies show that projected supply is vastly exceeding demand. The best way to grow Tasman and to provide jobs is by leveraging the attractiveness of our district, not by undermining these qualities with arbitrary business and industrial zones. I urge you, remove the business and industrial rezoning and hope from the process. Let the new council with a fresh mandate decide Tasman's growth strategy openly, transparently, and in line with the community voice. Thank you.
Well done. 20 seconds left. All right. Thanks, Timo. Now,
Questions?
No question. Right, we now move to declarations of interest. Any declarations of interest this morning? Five minutes did run out. Right, declarations of interest, none. No late items. Confirmation of minutes. So we've got the minutes of the strategy and policy meeting of the 7th of August. Do I have to be accepted as a true and correct record? Do I have a mover? Councillor Dakey, seconded Councillor Butler. I'll put those. All those in favour, please say aye. Against? Carried. And then we have the confidential minutes of the strategy and policy meeting held on Thursday, the 7th of August, to be confirmed as a true and correct record. Mover. Councillor Kittermont, seconder. Councillor Dakey. I'll put those. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Against. And then we've got the minutes of the Waimea River Park Management Plan deliberations held on Thursday, the 21st of August. I was there. You can second it because you were sick. Or, yeah, you were on Zoom. So I can move that because Councillor Shellcrest was there. All right, you can. So moved myself, seconded Councillor Kittermont. All those in favour, please say aye. Against? Carried. All right, now we've got in the order of our agenda, we're going to do the confidential item first because some staff have got some commitments later on. So I've got a resolution to move into confidential session due to a number of the rules under section 48(1) of the Local Government Act. So have I got a mover? Move Councillor Butler. A seconder? Mayor King. All those in favour, please say aye. Against? Carried. Right, so we'll move into confidential. So I'll let Kelsey and Robin a couple of minutes. And do we need permissions? Right, I'll just check with governance in relation to Robin. And then Councillor Greeny's got a question as well.
It's just a question around whether we should be going into committee or not, but you've already gone into it, so you've ignored me.
The advice that I've got is that we should.
I know, but shouldn't we have a debate about that rather than jumping straight into it?
Well, you're a little late because it's already been moved.
I know, but I had my hand up. That's my point. You've ignored me.
Well,
Thank you very much.
Sorry. I didn't see your hand beforehand and I've already put the motion. If you're in the room, I would have seen it, but you're not.
Point of order, Mr. Chair. There is no differentiation in the treatment of people who are online or in the room.
Henry, you have to sit outside. So that's the advice I've got. Well, I didn't see it and the motion's already been put and carried. So we're in committee. Right, so who's going to lead the report? We'll get underway and we're going to go to item 7.2, Waimea River Park Management Plan Adoption. And I think Rob's coming up to speak to that. And have you started your new role, Rob? Right. Congratulations. I'm sure you'll find it challenging in times.
Kia ora tātou, Atamarie. Thank you for this. Firstly, apologies from David. David is needed to head off. The insurers in the region today looking at our river assets. So it's a very good thing he was doing today, and hopefully we will start to sort out that process. If it's okay, I'll take the report as read. But if I could just thank Councillor Kinnamoth as chair, Councillor Dakey and Councillor Maylene for sitting on the committee to hear this, and Ursula Purcell was the...
You've got it wrong. It wasn't Dakey, it was Shellcrest.
Oh, sorry.
All right, but that's okay.
It was too. Apologies. It was such an impassioned speech before, Councillor, that you're still ringing in my mind. And Ursula Purcell from the Mataranga Māori side, and it was a very good process. I don't think anybody could say that it wasn't robust. There was plenty of opportunities. There was a huge amount of contact to neighbours, interest groups. There was submissions. We had the hearings. So hopefully this is the fast, formal bit at the end.
Right, so Councillor Kinnamoth.
Thank you, Chair, for an equally passionate comment as Mr. Dakey. I'd like to recommend that we adopt this report and this recommendation.
You're moving it.
Thank you. And also thank, on behalf of the people who were on the committee, thank all the hours that the staff were put in, and for David Arsenault and George Daly as well.
As the other member of the panel that was there, I'm happy to second. I thought it was a very good process and there was some really good input, which made some changes to what had been recommended. And I really valued the iwi input that we had as well. I thought it was really well done. And it just shows the value of having iwi representatives on those panels. Their understanding, because of the history of that particular area, is really important. So have we got any other speakers? None? I will put the motion then. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Against? Carried.
Thank you.
Item 7.3 is my chair's report, and I'll just speak to it briefly that I took the opportunity to thank the staff for the work they've done over the last 3 years in terms of their reporting and advice. And I also took the opportunity to thank those councillors that are retiring, and some of them aren't here today. I actually think it's been a relatively good term compared to others that I've been on, and I thought we worked well together. And I also wished all the best for those that are seeking re-election again. We must be tigers for punishment, some of us. But other than that, I'm happy to move my report if someone would like to second it. Seconded Councillor Dakey. Anyone want to comment or ask any questions?
I'll just thank the chair for his work this term and being a very good leader and chair and being tough on some of us when you needed to be tough. So thank you, chair.
I'm just a big softy, just a bit grumpy on the outside. All right, so we'll put that. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Against, carried. Now we go to 7.4, page 106. The transport, and it's Jamie and Jane. So on page 106 of your agenda.
Through the chair. So we're here to present on the updated transportation policies and procedures. The current manual hasn't been renewed since 2007. And this manual sets out requirements for councils, landowners and others working on the roads. In this update, we've made some important changes. We've updated the references to the legislation and regulations, for example, taking out the engineering standards and replacing it with the land use development manual. We've made minor edits to bring it in line with best practice. In our consultation material, we added 2 new draft policies. One was about the coastal erosion protection structures on road reserve, which was very similar to a previous policy approved. And we added the low use bridges policy. We've removed 5 policies because they'd been replaced by bylaws or separate policies or redundant. We did consultation between the 30th of June and the 21st of July. We received 5 submissions, and one was from Federated Farmers who were quite concerned with the low use bridges policy. So in the document before you, we have removed that policy and we plan to go out with consultation next year with Federated Farmers and our rural community. So today we recommend that the rest of the manual is updated. We do have just a minor amendment to make to the recommendations in front of you, which is just adding what, in terms of the policy, there is some mention of job titles. Now, because our structure has slightly altered, we just want to have minor editorial, make some minor edits to those. So if we could have a new line added. I'll take any questions.
We'll just get that. I've got 2 people with questions. So Councillor Maori, then Councillor Butler.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. So I think I've got 3 questions. So the first one is page 7 of yours, 122 of ours, and it's just clarity around the approval of council's executive shall be required before any prosecution. So it's just a separate process in terms of our other regulatory processes. So does transport have its own process in terms of enforcement?
No, I think there's a wider council approach to enforcement that we would follow.
Right. So what is the current process? Because my understanding from a regulatory sense is that was a delegated role to an ELT member previously, not necessarily the executive. So this doesn't reflect what I thought the understanding was delegated authority for enforcement. So maybe it's a question and check and it's a minor addition, because if we've got a policy already, then it just reflects the same as that. The other one is no idea what that one is. Hang on. The other one is in relation to the bylaws that we have in terms of public places, and it's page 63 of yours and 178 of the other, and that's around the sandwich boards. Wouldn't we just reflect with the bylaw that's in place for sandwich boards and the other bits and pieces, because it's really detailed about where this will be in terms of the public places bylaw? Shouldn't it just be a full stop? So if that bylaw is renewed, then the conditions that you reflect in your transport policy would just be the public places bylaw 2024 or its preceding bylaw. Yeah, it's 19.5.8. I think it's 63 in yours. It's 178 in ours. So 19.5.8, which is just a whole lot of detail about sandwich boards. I think you could stop at public places bylaw or its preceding act, full stop. Yeah.
Through the chair, yeah,
the dilemma often with these kinds of documents is we want people to be able to pick it up and understand it rather than refer to 72 other documents. But you totally take your point. There are definitely risks with trying to duplicate material. Yeah, we'll relook at that potentially as a minor editorial thing, and just, like you say, just leave it as a reference to the other live document. Yeah.
Okay, Councillor Butler.
Thank you, through you, Chair. Yeah, I'm happy to move the report. I've got a question about the coastal erosion protection structures on road reserve or unformed legal roads. And I'm just wondering, have we thought about situations where we actually want to protect that road reserve? And this is what's come up with the, with the actual reserves. Does council want to protect the particular reserve, or is it prepared to let it wash away? And there'll be different situations with different reserves, I know. And so I just wondered if you had if we'd thought about that a lot and what your view on that is.
Yeah, through the chair. The policy is intended to address situations where third parties want or have identified their own need for a coastal protection structure that they want to go on the council's road reserve. It's not intended to be a decision-making process for where council has its own reasons to protect its own infrastructure. So I just want to make it clear that the policy is not related to the council's own decision-making about its own assets.
Right. I think that's an important point to differentiate, as the pressure starts to come on from people wanting some hard coastal protection, because inevitably it's going to be in situations where what's between them and the coast is actually road reserve. So, yeah.
Councillor Kittelmore.
Thank you, through the chair. Debris on road. I see you're looking at bringing in an administration fee. In what situations would you be putting this administration fee to good use? And how many times a year do you think it would be happening?
Oh, to be fair on the latter question, it's pretty rare. What we want is a backstop to enable us to recover costs that we incur through perhaps deliberate negligence or an unwillingness for people who do cause debris to be on our road to go and clean up their own mess. In my time here, it's been extremely rare, but it does happen. So we want to make it clear to people that we will be holding them accountable for costs that they cause our ratepayers to incur.
Okay, so it's extremely rare, but we're going to introduce an administration fee. I would have thought if it's extremely rare, should we not just consider on a case-by-case basis, as opposed to doing another layer of administration and another layer of bureaucracy? Personally, I don't see with what you answered there, see the need for an administration fee. It's not a question, it's probably a statement. So I'll leave it up to you.
Okay, so I've got a mover. Board Member Dixon first.
Sorry, through you, Chair, just a quick comment. Just so thank you for leaving the low-use bridges aside for now, because I think it's a topic we need to have a bit more discussion with, especially in Golden Bay, a number of properties that will be affected by that, and we need to consider it a bit more carefully. So thank you.
I've got a signal that Council Maru is happy to second the report. Any more questions? Or Councillor Ellis?
Thank you, through you, Chair. Thanks, Jamie. Can I just have some clarification about moving forward with the low-use bridges policy? do we have a timetable of when that might look like and what sort of process we will be using?
Not specific details, sorry, through the chair, no specific details at this stage. We've got an idea of the work we would like to complete in order to undertake more meaningful consultation and engagement with both the council and with people who might be affected, because basically that involves going through making sure we've identified all of the bridges that might be affected by the policy, that we understand the condition and likely future renewal and replacement needs of those structures, so we can have this all quantified and understood, you know, how much is at risk sort of financially for the council and if it does or does not adopt this policy. So there's quite a bit of work involved in putting that together, and you'll appreciate we do have kind of elevated workloads at the moment. So we've signalled simply that it will be sometime next calendar year.
Thank you. It actually makes sense to have a really good idea of what sort of infrastructure we've got out there and what condition it's in. So it's actually a byproduct that's going to pay off, I think, for council in the long term. So thank you.
Okay, no other further questions. So I've got moved Councillor Butler, seconded Councillor Maru. I'll put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye. With the amended expert. So that was aye against. That's carried. Thank you, Jane. So we move on to item 7.5, drinking water quality management policy approval. Kim, and it's page 205. I see it says Dwayne, but I don't see Dwayne here.
Apologies from Dwayne, who's on sick leave today, but we do have Evan at the table as well. Thank you. So if it's okay, I'd like to take the report as read. There's no significant update or any changes to the report to what you've seen. Overarching comment is really this policy arises from the Water Services Act. Under those requirements, Taumata Arawai, or the Water Authority, as I know now officially, have, through reviewing some of our water plans, clearly highlighted to us the need and necessity for evidence that our council at the highest level demonstrates its commitment to water quality from its water source right through to the taps, and this policy achieves that. So happy to take any questions. Thank you.
Well, I've seen one and I've probably got one after the others, but I'll see if they ask it before I get there. So Councillor Maru and Councillor Dowler is next.
So thanks, Kim. So just in regards to the notation around the private water scheme, so it's in the application and it's notation 1 on the bottom of our page 211, where noting that the management of risks of source of human drinking water in the Tasman district is anticipated to reduce risk to all drinking water supplies. So I'm not sure I understand. So the policy applies to council-owned and operated drinking water supply schemes as outlined in Schedule 1. It does not apply to private bores and private water, but it's notated with that notation. What does that notation mean?
I'll comment on that.
It's probably your second page. It's the second page of your document. Under application.
Yeah, you're right. The policy is definitely for council water schemes. Not
so it relates to the under application the policy applies to, and it's got a notation 1, and if you go to the bottom of the page it's right with a notation. What does that notation mean?
So it's a little bit wider than just council's drinking water supplies. It applies for the regional authority jurisdiction as well. So it's about protecting source water, which I guess does imply some overarching protection of private supplies, but in terms of the drinking water supplies that council owns, it very much pertains to that.
So that notation doesn't give enactment to other things in terms of starting to regulate private water supplies or access to that?
Hopefully not, no.
I guess that's the hopefully word I'm not after.
Yeah. Through you, Mr. Chair, Michael might be able to.
Yeah, through you, Mr. Chair. Basically, what's coming through the enactments of the bills into 2 different acts means that there is always some responsibility on councils for all water supplies in the region. Now, one aspect of that is part of the enacting of the bill is there's a requirement to do a assessment of drinking water supplies, and that is all supplies. Okay, it is, if you remember back in the old days, a sanitary assessment, water and sanitary assessment. It is basically the return of that, and that has to be done within the first calendar year. And then the wastewater and stormwater follows, and they relate to private, having an overview on the private sector as well.
So I assume that probably this notation's copied from a template of, or whether how it's got there, but to have it in a notation that implies that that is a responsibility rather than having it really clear. Because if I read that normally, it just went exempt private water supplies out. But if the notation weakens that stance, that's a horrible way of hiding. Instead of just saying we actually have responsibilities beyond that to actually inquire and test and maybe regulate in the private and or I don't know. It's just leaves me going, I'm not sure.
Mr. Chair, through
It's
a fair comment. The Water Services Act does place responsibility on the regional side of council to protect source water for everybody.
So my preference is to say that really clearly and get rid of ambiguous notation.
Okay, I'm sure that's noted. Councillor Dowler. Microphone.
A wording thing on our page 213, your page 4 of 7. Says there, I just can't find it now. Oh yeah, okay, so you start off at number 3 and then you go down to D, and then the next paragraph starts, the council will engage with Nelson City Council, Health NZTE, Mary Name and the Water Services Authority. Why does it stipulate Nelson City Council when they didn't want to bar us with the local water's done well?
It's a valid question, but so it's part of a regional approach, I think.
We don't have a regional approach.
But yeah, do you want to comment on that?
They don't want it.
Yeah.
Quite plain, unless we amalgamate, they don't want it.
Yeah, it was more of a the legacy of this is sort of pre the Water Services Act and pre the local water done well and whatnot. And I think that clause there is that we a few years ago used to have sort of regional meetings to discuss various issues and collaborate around solutions to issues. It wasn't really so much as we'll work for you, or do your work or supply you water and that sort of thing. It was more about sharing ideas about how to manage risk in our respective territories.
I thought you might have actually answered the fact that we supply water to Nelson.
Well, I was going to answer that through Mr. Chair. We do.
I just wanted to clarify why it's there when, they've basically drawn a line in the sand. So our explanation is that we need to do that because we do supply water across the boundary.
We definitely do, and we'll continue to do that. So yeah, that's part of our.
That's right.
And there's ability for the water to come the other way, of course, but that's pretty rare.
But it did happen during a drought, so we need to acknowledge that.
Exactly
Councillor Walker.
Thank you, through you, Chair. So a bit more around what Councillor Maru has already shared. The messaging and the story that goes out needs to be crystal clear, particularly in light of what happened in our recent weather events and the water supply in Motueka on several occasions. One wasn't just the weather event, one was a contractor and a little whoopsie. Our community needs to know very clearly where we're going with this. So if the comms can come out clearly stating what we're required to do, regardless of whether working alongside Nelson City Council, Whareora or Tamatu Aroai, we need a really crystal clear message so everybody knows what that quality of water is and who's responsible. Thanks.
Thank you.
Councillor Butler.
Yeah, thanks for you here. Yeah, well, I actually agree with that too. And I was just your statement about that council is concerned with protecting private water supplies. I'm just not sure. And I was wondering if an example of that would be after the ITM fire in Tākaka, where there was concern about contamination of the bores by, the firefighting foam and stuff like that. So would that be an example of how council is actually protecting private supplies?
Just to be clear here, through the chair, sorry. It's not our duty to overall regulate. We're not here to regulate those private supplies. That is not our job. We're here to assess we do have to assess some risks on those private supplies and document that. And I think the legislation says as far as going to have a plan about how to assist, but the bulk of that is them asking for assistance in the first place. If we don't know about something, we can't assist. And a lot of that assistance is actually through Te Mata Arawai as well, the Water Services Authority as well. It's a three-way sort of thing that they have the responsibilities to the regulator, the Water Services Authority, and then if they need help, then they come to us, and we have to help basically. Yeah.
Okay, yeah, I understand that. So that my other question is about protecting the source. Do you think that the standards are going to be higher from government, where we're actually going to have to do more to protect the source? I mean, I'm just thinking of our Pahara scheme and our Collingwood scheme, and the little schemes. And is it possible that the government's going to come along and say, well, we don't think that's good enough? You have to. And also, did they agree that we didn't actually chlorinate the Upper Tākaka supply? I don't know. There was going to be a meeting with the ministry about that. I'm not sure what the outcome of it was, but it's just a sort of symptom of having to do more, which might actually jeopardise some of these supplies from where they actually come from.
Through you, Mr. Chair. Yes, so there's a huge amount that we do now on source water protection, water safety plans. It's a good question, and standards are increasing, and that's part of what we've been coming to council about, the extra costs associated with that. The specifics of the Uptaka scheme, Evan can explain through Chair.
Yeah, we did meet with Te Mata Arawai around that, and it's we have the option of applying for an exemption to the requirement to chlorinate there, and that was pretty much our approach would be to do that. It's quite a long, involved process. But yeah, there's a few other questions around whether, at the time we had the meeting, the new bill, now an act, wasn't in place, and that there was some questions whether that was going to actually wipe the requirement to chlorinate anyway for certain categories of supplies, and that still may be the case. But at the moment, our approach is to seek an exemption from that because we believe the risk is relatively low. There's a very small population for those reasons, but we haven't started that process yet. We're preparing to start.
Yeah. Thanks. And given that it comes straight out of the hillside, it's pretty pure, that water.
Yes and no. It comes from a stream that flows across State Highway, whatever it is, 647. So there are risks. There are feral animals, etc. So it's not. I wouldn't call it pure, but we treat it really well at the moment. So,
Councillor Kinnemore. Just before you, the manager just wants to make a comment. John,
this is possibly a little bit rhetorical, but in going back to the bore conversation and the onus on this council to do some stuff in that regard, responsibility, have we thought about our communication to bore owners?
Yes. Can I respond to that? Yes. There's so the Motueka incident with the private bores.
Just a general, the onus on this council to do some stuff.
Yeah, certainly from our regional authority side of council, there is quite regular messaging going out. So there's been messaging going out about how to protect private bores, your private bore, where to test, and that will continue probably on a 6-monthly basis. But yeah, so on our regional authority side, we do test groundwater. There's that information is released, publicly available, so that's part of the process of just advising what the state of the environment. Yeah.
Councillor Kinnamore, sorry.
That's right. Through you, Mr. Chairman, sir, I've got a comment and a question. In a previous life, when I worked at Christchurch City Council, which was not chlorinated water, we gave the Ministry of Health an undertaking to increase the sampling so that they had more confidence that there was no E. coli in the system because we had increased the sampling program. So just put that thought into your mind when you're looking at the exemption. Secondly, is what's our policy on fluoridation?
I can answer that.
Sorry, Mr. Chair.
There's a list. The Ministry of Health holds a list. So the Director General of Health has the responsibility for deciding who fluoridates and who doesn't, or which supplies are fluoridated and which aren't. There is a list of those, which includes Nelson City Council, which have been told to fluoridate, and the deadlines have come up, so Nelson is now fluoridating. There's a second list of those that the DG is actively considering whether or not they need to be fluoridated. We are not on that list. No Tasman District Council supplies on that.
So we're not on any list at all to fluoridate?
Correct.
Good man.
It's not to say that there won't be.
That doesn't mean it changed. Right. Well, it hasn't been moved and seconded, but I've just got a question about probably slightly outside this, just your discussions that you've had with the water regulator over our rural supplies, which predominantly provide stock water. And we've certainly seen an exit of houses from some of those. Were your discussions productive? And I remember with one of our managers going to the select committee about and talking about our rural supplies and discussions about where the filter should actually be at the house rather than at the point of where you take it. Have you made progress that you think is positive with the regulator?
Right. So earlier this week, the regulator released the updated version of the mixed rural agricultural acceptable solution, which is the compliance option whereby you can treat at the point of supply, at the point of use, point of entry. And I'm still just going through that to see what the implications of it are. It appears to be more workable than the previous version, which placed all the onus on the council to maintain and operate and deal with those points of like the UV treatment at the house. I think it might come back into consideration, possibly for likes of Dovedale. Just need to work through the finer detail yet.
Sounds like progress to me. I've got Councillor Murray, and I think I've just got a nod from Councillor Dowler. I need a mover and a seconder as well. But and I noted there would be some minor amendments because of what you said, and you passed it up.
So happy to move in. Just I guess as I've sat here pondering, perhaps it's the notation that you look at minor tweaking, and the notation captures something like the whatever the act is does place a responsibility on council to assess potential risks from private water supplies. So it's just a little bit clearer in the notation, but otherwise happy to move. Oh, with that consideration, happy to move with the minor tweaks.
Yep. I've taken that on board. Councillor Dowler?
Yeah, happy to second.
Okay. Nothing else?
Just a comment. When I got resource consent for my new property, I take the water off the roof. I had to put a UV plant of a certain size inside that to supply the house, and cost me $280 a year. I think it is for 2 UV bulbs and 2 pretty substantial filters. So it's not expensive, and I maintain it myself. It's easy enough to maintain. You've got a light that tells you whether the bulb's working or it's not. It takes you 10 seconds to replace the bulb. So if that comes into the rural scheme of things, I think that the rural community should say, thank you, it's the best option.
was certainly the submission that we put in. But I think the filters were slightly more expensive than that, but it certainly made sense to us. So I've got to move Councillor Maru, seconded Councillor Dowler. No further questions. I'll put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Against, carried. And we'll move on now.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. And 7.6 quarterly climate change update. Anna. And Alan's coming here to support.
That's a Maria koutou. Happy to take my report as read and answer any questions you have. Thank you.
Oh, that was quick. So we'll start with Councillor Butler.
Thanks. Through the chair, thanks for the report. And I am happy to move it. I'm just wondering what the thinking was about dropping the risk framework. Was it a financial one, or just did it not seem to be going in the direction that we wanted?
Okay, I'll pick that one up. So through the chair. So it's just to be clear, it's the Risk Explorer tool. We'll still be getting the risk assessment report. So the two things are sort of separate. So the Explorer is obviously a software package, and the idea is it's easy to navigate all that risk information on a spatial sort of basis. Internally, we already have that same capability through a GIS and our data sets. So, so in terms of our internal use, we don't really need the tool. All our data sets were uploaded into the tool, but there have been a few issues with how that's sort of been translated. And through internal peer review, we identified a number of concerns with how that data appears in the tool. So I guess the key potential benefit of the tool is being able to make that available to the public, to the community. But at the moment, we still don't have sufficient confidence in the tool to be able to do that. We believe if it was released, it would kind of raise it would raise some sort of false negatives and those sorts of things, and would probably create a lot of queries for ourselves from the public. I guess we're in a similar position to some other councils, so particularly Christchurch City and Nelson, who are not yet confident enough with the tool to release it to the public. And so, on balance, with the annual cost of being part of the tool, we felt that probably was not something we should continue to invest in at that point. Urban Intelligence are still developing the tool, developing the software. And so it potentially will get better. The tool certainly has good promise, and we could kind of sort of jump back in at a later date when we've built up our confidence. But for the time being, our judgment was it probably wasn't worth the cost for us to continue to be part of it.
Thanks for that. I mean, the question's been asked around the table, meeting after meeting, about where it's going. And I mean, sometimes you just have to make a call. And if we can do our own thing, then all the better.
And as I say, there is an opportunity for us to come back into it later if and when we're confident that we could use it in the public domain.
Just sorry for you, the actual audit though has been peer reviewed.
Sorry, yes, in terms of the report itself, yes. So all the data that's going into the risk assessment report, that's all been peer reviewed, but it's the tool itself.
And the intent is to bring back that audit at some point to the
to bring back the report.
The report,
yeah,
to a new council.
Yeah.
So happy to move it.
I've got Councillor Kinamont, so it's moved. Councillor Butler, I'll be looking for a seconder. It's just to receive the report.
Thank you. I'm happy to second it. I've got a couple of questions. The funding from EECA for the solar panels. So 825,000 in total, of which 165,000 has been provided from iwi.
No, from both council and the marae.
Okay, so the there's more involved than just the two maraes, isn't it? There's other community buildings that are going to get solar panels on them.
Through the chair. So yes, there's 10 in total that will be outfitted with the solar panels and batteries. So there are the two marae, so the one in at Onetahua and the one in Motueka and Te Awhina, yes. And then we have a short list of, I think it's about 14 council facilities, 8 of which will be retrofitted. It's just they're doing a bit more research into, are the roof structures able to hold the panels, that kind of thing. But yes, they will be our community facilities that are also used as places where people can evacuate to an emergency.
So this is a good news story then, isn't it? There's a partnership between council and iwi doing community buildings, which I think needs to be publicised, that we're working together, not only talking about things, but also co-funding things. And I think that's opportunity is missed in this report. It could have stated that a bit more.
Through the chair, a media release went out earlier this week on this. Yeah. Thanks.
And maybe Councillor Walker may have to answer some of it. It's great looking at the solar stuff and everything, talk about electric vehicles and stuff like that. What if, and I might be oblivious to it, it might be right there and it hasn't hit me in the face yet. What are we going to do with all the batteries when they start conking out? Because I do know that the wreckers are going to start receiving electric vehicles shortly. And I do know there is, because of the fires that are happening in the Auckland and stuff like that, there is a fear of, well, they put a car in the corner of the yard. Will it go on fire and burn the yard down, or won't it? Can they take the battery out and take it and put somewhere? I don't know whether that's been factored into the regional business unit for the landfills at this stage. But also, I'll just make a comment that at our last NRSBU meeting, we were told that the 33 kVA solar farm that's going to be put out there is just about ready to get the green light to be put on. So it's going to be a huge electricity production area coming on stream into the Tasman area, and hopefully we'll get some credits for it. Hopefully.
I haven't got the consent yet, but the consenting process is going through, and we've been working very hard but it's separate from this council, but we own half of it. So we will have a big solar farm at Bells Island in time. Anna?
Through the chair, so disposal of the batteries is not my area of expertise, sorry, but I know that things are improving in that area in terms of being able to reuse them for other purposes once they finish. So I'm sure that will, and I think the life of the batteries is getting longer as well. So I'm sure they're factoring all that into the project.
I'm pretty sure the manager will be across it in terms of the landfill. But Councillor Walker, you may have a comment because I'm sure it's been discussed at your committees.
Thank you. Through you, Chair. And yes, it has been discussed, and there are piece of infrastructure that have been built that we are putting batteries into, and where they go long term after that, I'm not 100% certain, but definitely that has been featured into part of the business plan for the Nelson Tasman Regional Land Business Unit.
Any other questions, Anna? Certainly progress is made, and you can just see it. Even I drive a hybrid now and don't use petrol at all. I haven't bought petrol for 7 weeks. Longer the better. So I've got moved Councillor Butler, seconded Councillor Kinnemont to receive the report. I'll put it. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Against? Carried. Now we move on to Motueka Master Plan. And it says 7.6 again, so a little bit of a numbering problem here, but the page is 228. And I'm sure we'll get some questions in relation to this from Motueka Council.
Morena koutou. I'll take the report as read, but there is actually one additional comment that I'd like to make that isn't reported in the paper. It's just so this committee is aware that MFE staff are actively working on adaptation planning legislation alongside the RM reform work. And it's likely that we'll get some comms around this in the near future, public comms. So it's very much, this legislation will influence any future master plan work for Motueka. Saying that though, in terms of the staff recommendation, it still remains a pragmatic approach that we fold this current background master plan work in with the regional spatial planning initial work that we're doing. And that just reflects in terms of the current limited resources that we have, and as we pragmatically navigate through the current legislative reform process. So happy to take any questions. Thank you.
I thought Motueka would lead this off, so we'll start with Councillor Martin.
About leading could be out in the levy. I'm happy to move the recommendations. This has been around in circles for a lot of times, and thank you, Diana, for your patience. And but in terms of the current legislative process and the field, I don't have an issue with the recommendations. So happy to move.
Councillor Dowler.
I'm happy to second it.
Yeah.
Just after the comments you've just made now, I hope that the next council and the next LTP will start heading down the track of deciding whether we're going to retreat these areas or defend them, and put the appropriate funding in place to start investigating it. You can't hide any longer. We've got to start doing it, because the people need to know what direction the council may head.
And number 3, Motueka councillor in this stint, Councillor Walker.
Yeah, thank you, through Chair. I guess I just want some reassurance that all the work that has been put in thus far for the Motueka master plan will be weaved into the spatial plan, that you won't be starting from a blank canvas, as we have had other working groups within Motueka which seem in 6 years to have not gained traction at all, and we actually don't look back, but we do have a rear vision mirror for a reason, to see what's behind us. As our windscreen in the front of us is bigger, please assure me that what work has been done, because we have been out and talked to our community, that will be woven in very clearly into the spatial plan. I'm anxious to see that there is a date in 2026 where the new council is formed, that we progress with this. A quick question, the rezoning or the zoning of Port Motueka, does that fit into the spatial plan?
Yeah, and that's going to be part of the wider conversation. Yeah, we're looking at how Port Motueka fits with Motueka and how that fits in the broader regional spatial plan as well.
So the group that have been big stakeholders who have taken over, we paused that part of the program a while ago. We had an interest from some stakeholders. Are they aware of what council is proposing from today? And my last thing that I wanted to quote is, interesting, isn't it, that the coalition government has steered us in this direction, and for this particular item on the agenda, we're following them.
I might answer, Councillor Walker, I might just answer that. So, yeah, you'd be aware that stakeholders are still ongoing with that piece of work. We're still waiting with bated breath to see a response from that. I keep nudging them along the line.
Have we fronted the spatial planning conversation with them though, Mr.
No, this is specific. No, not specifically about the spatial planning. We're just waiting for the specific plan around the port that those stakeholders we are told on with. So I keep nibbling away at that one.
And a point well made that we need to look at the rear vision. We don't want to lose the work that we've done in the past, because I agree with you. So, no. All right. So it's moved and seconded. I note in the motion that it says early in 26 that you'll be coming back. So the new council will see that. All right. I got seconded by Councillor Dowler. Okay. So no other questions. Okay. We'll put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Against? Carried. And we'll move on to, it says 7.7, page 240 in your agenda, Port Tarakoe Spatial Plan. And I think, Barry, this is you, and Tanya would have been with you, but she's on Zoom because she did speak to me earlier in the week. So Tanya, nice to see you.
Thank you, and my
Who's gonna
apologies.
Who's going to speak to the report, Tanya?
I'll speak to the report. The Port Tarakoe Spatial Plan, it's a project that's been underway for probably a year and a half. There's been extensive consultation on it, and the committee and council have been involved in its development through its various iterations. It has now reached the stage where it's been brought back to council for adoption in its final form. I'm happy to take any questions on it.
I'm sure we'll have some. We'll start with Councillor Butler, and then Councillor Hill may have a question.
Thank you. Through the chair. Yeah, I actually don't have any questions. I'm happy to move it. I think it's been a lot of work, and thank you, Tanya. And what's clear is that it's not actually about saying that the port is going to go in any particular direction. It's just opening the way, paving the way for the appropriate zoning and so that resource consents are not having to be applied for all the time. So it's actually quite a neutral plan in the end. So I'm happy to move.
Okay, thank you for that. Councillor Hill?
Thanks, Chair. I don't have a question, but happy to second. And yes, I think this is a good step to take. I'm not sure how we avoid the sort of, beginning issues around, people not really understanding quite what was going on or what was it about, or the very high level approach. And I'm not sure how we socialise those things just in a small way before they head on out, so that we're clear that people in the community or industry or people out there are really clear about what it is we're doing and what the point of it is. People get a bit, I don't know, I think because we're in this world, quite a bit around plans and language and approaches and how come it's a bit different for people in the community. So I'm not quite sure what an adjustment is, but I think that idea of just approaching a few people to say, have a read of this, what's your take on what this means before we go a bit wider. But good engagement from the people involved in the port, whether recreationally or industry there, good involvement with the port advisory group. So I think it's a good thing to do. And as Councillor Butler said, the port needs to be able to function as an industrial port. It needs to, and to not need to apply for consents for things that would normally be permitted activities, if that's the right language, for its, general run-of-the-mill business. Yeah, I think it sets a good approach for the next steps. And thanks, Tanya, for your work and linking in. Well, I think you had, having a number of events for people to be able to come in and over a period of time, through the day, that people could pop into the Pohara Boat Club and have conversations. I think that aspect has been really valuable, and I know it takes some time, but I think there's been an integrity to the intent around the engaging with people. Thank you.
Right, thank you for that. Port Tarakoe has always been something that's caused me some heartache, but it's amazing to see the progress that has been made over the last few years. And I look forward to visiting it to see the new building, and also visiting it over the summer break this year. Board Member Dixon, have you got any comment in relation to this?
Yeah, just through you, Chair. I'd like to second what Councillor Butler and Councillor Hill said. It's nice and neutral, and as a scope in there for future development, which I think is really important, industrial and recreational, because it is a really important recreational facility, and it's a great asset that respect as well in Golden Bay.
It certainly is. All right. So any other questions? It certainly is an important asset going forward. It's amazing the amount of rock that's gone through there and things that have really made a difference to its profitability. So with that, it's been moved, Councillor Butler, seconded Councillor Hill, that we receive the Port Tarakoe plan report and adopts the spatial plan. I'll put that. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Against? Carried. Thank you, Tanya, and thanks, Barry. Another one ticked off the list. But we've now got the update on the Nelson Tasman Inundation Practice Note 2019. And it's Paula and Barry.
And Brian from our hazards team.
Right.
Kia ora koutou. The inundation practice note is an important tool that helps us build resilience to inundation. We've been working towards an update of the IPN since 2022 to incorporate national guidance and updated technical information. We're seeking to update the IPN independently of NCC so it is consistent with that national guidance and the current practice that TDC, Natural Hazards Team, applies when setting ground and building platform levels. And I just wanted to note that the photos that are included in the report just show the success of implementing the IPN and building that resilience to inundation hazards. Happy to take any questions.
Okay, so questions. So we'll start with Brent, and I've probably got a couple because I understand we measure something differently. Was it sea level rise or something? That's been part of the problem. So that'll be one of the comments that I'll want, but I'll start with Brent.
I'm happy for your question to go first, if you like, Mr. Chair. Well, I guess for that's my fundamental question is this was a joint Tasman District and Nelson City Council process, so that we didn't have different interpretations across our boundaries and everything was really clear. So that's a similar question to the chairs. And then what are the key differences in terms of Nelson City and Tasman District Council that is there differences in their policy or they just stopped? That's the first part.
Perhaps it is just appropriate for us to only comment on the Tasman approach. It's not for us to comment on the approach that Nelson City
it's not helpful because this was set up as to be a joint one to mitigate the difference in terms of interpreting that boundary line at Champion Road. So if we go to 2.1, 2.2, 2.3, it was all about a joint process in the opening, and then so if it's timing and resource, I'm less concerned. If it's a difference in opinion and interpretation of national data, I absolutely I won't support this. I want some clarity between good people across in our area, and if there's opposing views, I want to understand the opposing views.
Our approach has been that we will following what the national guidance sets and the approach and the methodology that sets out. And we have been reflecting, and that is reflected in the update that is in front of you. Nelson has been working through that process and is yet to confirm whether they will adopt that same methodology. And that is why we are now seeking to go independently, because we would like the IPN that Tasman is using to reflect that guidance and our approach at present.
I'll just have one more. I think it's going to be heaps of questions. So I'll just have one more. The other part is we're already taking that into consideration in the decisions that we're making in terms of consenting. What ability, so that's the bit I don't understand. So it's not officially signed off as a practice note from council. the information's there, it's being used and applied already, and governance haven't agreed to that's the process or the mechanism. So one, the fact that we're using it before this document is signed off, because that must be the only urgency, is to have practice note to reflect current practice. So how do we get into a situation where we have practice that hasn't been signed off and in policy?
I guess it was waiting for Nelson to see what Nelson was going to do. So we do that in a lot of circumstances. It's not just the inundation practice note. We get the latest, for example, the latest sea level rise predictions, and we use those. And so they're updated. The IPCC, I think that's right, IPCC updates those at regular intervals over several years. So it's something that happens. We've kind of codified this in a guidance note so that it's out of whack. And I mean, it's very difficult. The conversation around this table will be very different to the conversation around Nelson City's table, because you've got areas like the Wood and Te Huna Nui, which are very low lying, which are very built up. If they're redeveloped, you end up with floor levels up here for some places and floor levels down here for existing buildings. So it starts to get a lot more difficult in those built up areas. And so I think that's part of the challenge, not necessarily for Tasman, but to work out, okay, well, if that's coming, how are we going? How do you manage that conversation with the community?
And I guess, Barry, as you well know, in Waitakere, there's already some of those conversations where we have those bits, and that's the bit, is that, and everything else that we're trying to do in terms of joint councils and working together, to waylay that word that one of my colleagues uses at public meetings, is that we don't necessarily have to be one council to be working together for clarity. And this, to me, seems a step backwards in that. But again, my question is, do we need it? So we have the data, we have the set of data, it's being applied regardless of whether we've adopted a plan. So what is the, and I know there's some liability and some bits in the document, but it seems that we're already interpreting the data without our sign off. What's the pain in waiting longer?
Data comes from central government, as I understand it. But
yeah.
I guess it's trying to give the public clarity for the goal of these numbers are, right, if you build to this level, then that's great. Like, we're not saying no to levels below that, but it's trying to give the public some guidance, like, right, if we get to here, then no restrictions, so they can forward plan. Otherwise, they're having to come every time to council staff or the hazards team to ask, what is this? Whereas there's lots of consultants and specialists out there that are quite well adept at reading this guidance and making their own ideas, instead of each time individually inefficiently coming to the likes of myself to, here's the number.
One last thing, just because it's so interesting for me, is, and again, thank you for the photos that are in there, but what's not in there is the photos on the east side of Motueka that have been built up that had no water around them. You know, so selective photos, I get the point and I get the messaging, because nobody, Councillor Walker and I are dealing with a house in Rewalker that's should probably never have been built where it was built. But so I get the connotations, but this is really important. This is significant, and to help for clarity for me and the wider region, I just see there's a danger in us not doing this together. And I know it's probably frustrating, but I think there's more benefits from having a constant message and a constant voice region-wide to help people like me.
Councillor Dowler, before we go on.
Sat at the table for too many years, but I remember probably back in 2008, Waitakere, we had maybe after that, we had a cul-de-sac, 70 houses in it. The builder owned a house, built it brand new, had an empty section next door that he also owned. Decided to sell the big house, build a smaller house on the section next door, came here and was told he had to build the house this much higher than the house that he already owned, and he wasn't very happy. So he went into negotiations with staff, and it turned out that he, instead of 2.5 metres, I think, up, they came to an agreement of 500 mil. I don't know what length of consent was given, but as he said, well, if the place gets flooded and those 72 houses are gone, what the heck's the use of my house being here anyway? And so he was able to build it at a reduced level. That was one of the main reasons why he was allowed to build it reduced, because he just pointed out, well, he wasn't going to be the only one on the island. He didn't want to be the only one on the island. and he didn't want to sit up there looking over the neighbour's fence. So just, there's ways forward as long as it's managed.
Going forward and thinking of the legislation that we're facing, we're going to end up with a joint plan. Nothing sure from what I've seen from this government, and that was proposed by the previous government. So in actual fact, within 2 years, in theory, we should be starting to prepare for a joint plan. But a joint plan will take at least 3 years, and could take longer if I look at history. So in the end, we'll end up with one plan. But this is basically interim for the moment. Would that be a fair comment?
Yes, that would. And the other thing that I would just like to point out is that with existing properties and areas, once we do the adaptation planning for those, these levels might not be so high once it's decided what the community desire is. So yeah.
That could upset people if somebody's been required to go up this high, and then we change it later. Yeah.
But that's a time thing, I guess. So it's resilience. Like those adaptation plans I've seen where it's okay, at this point, these trigger mechanisms will do this and that. But those people have extra resilience. Like, I know it's extra cost, but as we've seen in recent flood events, resilience is actually a good thing. So
I can think back to flooding in Richmond in the 2013 event, where some people were required to go up an extra 300, and they didn't get flooded. So they were very, very thankful, because we had the 4 creeks in Richmond that come through Richmond all flooded, because we had 108 mils in 1 hour, and Queen Street flooded. So the people that, and this was a very expensive house, said, I was pissed at the time, and that's what they said, but they were very thankful at the end after that flood event, because their house didn't get flooded. Their garden got water, but they didn't get it in the house. So there's 2 sides to it. At times when you're doing the building, it works, but again, it's consent. So it's a practice note, isn't it? So it means you can still apply to go lower. So that's it. So that's the thing. It's not set in concrete, as I understand it.
that's correct. This is just guidance. Say, right, if you build at this level, you're unlikely to have troubles. If you want to build lower, then you might face other restrictions. So we all the time we're permitting stuff lower than these recommendations, but they might have restrictions like maybe that's relocatable. We've had that discussion recently about duration of consent, especially for sea level rise. So yeah, there's lots of cases, maybe like a cool store, for instance, where who cares if water goes through it, you get the hose out and hose it out. So there are lots of times when people are building and getting approval to build lower, but they just may face other restrictions.
So in some ways, it's informing them of the risk, which we have a duty to do. So I can understand that. Yeah, and there would be insurance implications. And if I think back to Ruby Bay, 2012, and Councillor Dowler, you were here then, and I remember us getting a lot of flack at the time, but it has flooded since, and its water comes through the seawall and affects those houses. So at the moment, I've got this practice note. I haven't got a mover or a seconder. I've got Councillor Butler happy to move. I've got a seconder, Councillor Dakey. We've had a discussion. It's a practice note. It's guidance. It's not set in concrete. So it's moved and seconded. No other questions? Right, let's put the motion then. All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Against? Right, I made that 2 against. So it's carried. You want that noted? You could note that. And then we'll move on to our update. And look, with members' indulgence, we might keep going rather than breaking for lunch, because we could get all this done before 1 o'clock. Yep. All right. So I understand Dwayne's crook. And Alan and Mike are going to take this over.
Yeah, thank you. Through the chair, I'd like to take the report as read. We'll just allow us to do some highlights just in order here. So yeah, 3 sections. And strategic policy is policy, and then environmental and infrastructure planning. So Alan, I'll let you introduce any highlights in your area.
Sure, certainly. Again, through you, Mr. Chair. So in the community policy area, so it's great to see some flags for items finished there. So a couple of reserve management plans, a couple of bylaws, and the resident survey. So great to see those. You will note that, however, we have got a read and discontinuing that work on the review of the water supply rates. So this was kind of the whole question of extending the club, etc. It's an issue that still will need to be dealt with, but right now and over the next couple of years, we just don't have the capacity at a staff level to do that work with water services plans and the weather event. So it's probably something we will have to come back to after the 1st of July 2027, so probably through the business unit at that point. And then in the body of the report, we have just we have recorded some of the what we took out of a workshop that Briley led on the community funding review. So particularly around the sort of the scope of that piece of work. So yeah, really just trying to reflect back to you what we took out of that workshop, and if there's any strong disagreements with that, we'll give you an opportunity to flag that before we sort of go any further. Briley has moved roles, so Amy will be picking up that piece of work and progressing it. So that's it from me. Thanks.
All right. So your part of the report goes to what page? I've got it.
I know, Michael,
page 415. But yeah, look, I'll do the highlights in the infrastructure and planning policy. Just a little bit easier.
And then we'll see if there's some questions.
Yep, cool. So yeah, very similar to Alan here. We've able to tick off a few good projects underway, and there's quite a few in progress that we'll be able to tick off within the next little while. There's a good half a dozen there that are in progress as we speak to do it. So really good effort by the teams and by you and with your support to get through these. So thank you very much. Local Water's done well is particular big one that's coming to you next week, report and water service delivery plan, and that sees the end of one process and the start of another. So yeah, happy for any questions too.
No, let's see. Any questions of that? You just raised Local Water's done well, and my understanding is that the regulations in relation to wastewater, which is an area that I spend a lot of time because of my chairmanship of the NRSBU, are due in October or November. That causes me some great concern as a ratepayer, because what we've seen in some drafts look to be very, very expensive going forward.
So yeah, through the chair, yeah, we did a submission to those proposed rules coming in with wastewater, and so we haven't seen any draft of how they're looking now and had any commentary to how they're looking now. So we'll be as interested as everyone else about how they turn out.
In terms of our major sewage plant that we own, at least there's another 15 years before that consent comes up. But in terms of Motueka, it's considerably closer. And these new rules could be very expensive.
Just to comment on that, there are always risks and opportunities with these things.
I like that. That's an optimistic point of view. Very good. Any questions of Mike and Alan? Barry? Yep.
I'm just looking at the inflow and infiltration management plan. I've been on site and seen how it works with the fibre optic getting laid through the wastewater system to detect weather. So I know that there's been a certain area in Motueka has been done. So I'm only assuming that possibly in the next LTP, there will be funding put into the LTP to try and rectify that area that's been tested already And hopefully further testing will continue on, and each LTP will stage everything. Just don't say it's going to cost 20 million to fix the infiltration. Let's do what we've got and try and slow it down, because that's obviously the reason why we have so many issues with stuff. And I know that there are other areas that need that work done as well, but it's I'm just concerned that it may just end up to be a pot thing instead of a stage thing. That's all.
The indication to the chair, the idea of the plan is to exactly do that, is actually have a plan going forward. First, note what the issues are. Secondly, and see where the gaps in our information are, and where we know the information, what is our strategy going forward to rectify. I understand that in several asset activity management plans ago, there was funding to start replacing Motueka specifically. I understand that got well cut, chopped and reduced, and it's now starting to get back in. But this plan will inform what is required when it's required. But yes, that's all going to be part of it.
Councillor Kittimore, and then Councillor Greenie.
Thank you. Through the chairman there. Mapua Master Plan has been signed off, done. But I note in here that you're talking about a more interactive online version of the CMP, Catchment Management Plan, will be developed as staff capacity allows. The project to me has gone 95% of the way towards completion, and the last 5% is the CMP. I'd hate to see it drop off. So instead of saying as capacity allows, can you give us give me an understanding of when in your thoughts will be completed? This year, next year?
So yeah, as you'll note, the CMP has been approved. And so this is the communication and getting that out there in a form that's different than it has been in the past to better inform people around there. So it is as staff time becomes available, not just in our team, but in the communications team as well. So yes, we're looking to put that in priority, but yeah, within 6
people
months.
are speaking but can't hear anything here.
Yeah, there's microphone on, so
Just pull it closer.
just pull it a bit closer. Yeah, could you not hear anything at all?
Well, I can hear perfectly well. I'm fine.
Okay, Councillor Green, you've got a question?
Thanks. Yeah, just I don't know if we've got up to this yet, but I think it's para 4.7. PC 84 update. I noted that we were at the time writing 2 days out, so I'm just wondering if there's a fresh update from staff where we are with that. And my other observation is just, I think would it be useful to acknowledge when we're referencing PC 81, to acknowledge, given that we've considered that in committee, to acknowledge in this report that PC 84, the Mapua Master Plan, was folded into PC 81, because it's not immediately evident from the headings in the confidential meeting or in the discussion here that the in-committee meeting might have been discussing something wider than the original PC 81.
Barry?
Well, yeah, I can give an update on the freshwater plan change. I guess you may have seen recent media coverage of that. Radio New Zealand ran a story yesterday regarding PC 84. So the request was lodged with the Ministry of the Environment on the 1st of September. They undertook that they would get back to, officials undertook to get back to us within 2 weeks if they had any questions. We haven't heard anything from officials, and we haven't heard anything from the Minister. The only feedback we've had is the comments in that Radio New Zealand article from the Minister, who said he was waiting on advice from officials regarding our plan change request. So that's the update. That's all we have, unfortunately.
But their 10 days is up, right?
The 10 days is up. Yeah, that was official, said they'd get back to us within 2 weeks if they had any questions or needed further information.
Okay. Yeah, and just in relation to the other item, I think it's just useful, but retrospectively now, but just to note that PC 81 folded in PC, was it 86, Mapua Master Plan. because people reading through these documents wouldn't have understood that that plan was folded in.
Thanks, noted.
That's noted. Right, any other questions? We'll go to Barry's update now. So we've sort of got out of sequence, but we'll just cover that now. Barry?
Oh, thanks through the chair. Yes, I was going to cover off PC84, which I have. You've heard from the team this morning on a number of items in terms of Motueka and PC81. Just in the last 6 weeks, we've made the Wakefield plan change operative finally. So that covers off what was a suite of growth plan changes initiated about 3 years ago. So quite a significant milestone there to get that under our belts, as well as the Port Tarakoe spatial plans completed. There is one error there for 17.2 that should say plan change 76, not 79. Plan change 79 is the deferred zoning plan change, and the hearing for that has been adjourned, and the hearing panel has requested some further advice, and closing remarks from council officers will be provided to the hearing panel in the next couple of weeks, and we anticipate hopefully a decision from the hearing panel towards the end of this year to cover that off, which will be another milestone. So apart from that, I guess in some respects we're in a bit of a holding pattern until we know what the RM reform is going to look like and we get more detail on that. The team is turning its mind to spatial planning, and we're starting to scope out what that looks like, what that's likely to look like, and also the information, what we need, what information we have, and what information gaps there might be that we need to fill, so that when we do have more detail, we're just ready to go. So happy to take questions. Thanks.
Right. Any questions of Barry? None at all. Okay. I'm looking for a mover and a seconder. Move Councillor Ellis, seconded Councillor Maru. We'll put the report. All those in favour, please say aye. Against? Carried. So we move to item 7.10, Brightwater and Wakefield Catchment Management Plan. Approvals for consult. Ian, I think that's you. And page 460.
Thank you. Through the chair, I'll take my report as read and open to questions.
Thank you. This is probably a bit dear to my heart, these two things here, but Brightwater, Mount Heslington Stream comes from the valley through some open drains into a piping system out into the river. The report doesn't state that you'll be looking into the piping system, just talked about open drains. Could you just confirm with me that it does include any existing piping drains for the catchment management plan?
Through the chair. Yes, and it's an ongoing discussion. We've had at least 3 runs at trying to find a cost-effective improvement there, and basically there's not good outcomes. We're really tweaking around the edges. And we've recently been out to Tony's Engineering again, and we think we can do a bit more there to protect that area. But overall, it's, yes, minor incremental improvements is about all we can achieve.
You know where I'm coming from. And secondly, does it include Snowden's Bush?
Snowden's Bush, yes, through chair, is now, it's been raised by the Community Association recently, and so I've dug into that more. We've found some old correspondence where they first raised that a few years ago. For background for everyone else, it seems that at some point in the past, the creek was cut through to the river, and so the historical flow path through Snowden's Bush was cut off, and therefore there's suspicion that that's impacting the trees, dieback. The records I have is that DOC is not actually concerned, and they're actually the managers of that bush. So I've got to dig into that further, and but it's an action item in the CMP to investigate that and potentially divert flows back through Lord Rutherford Park, where there's an existing flow line, and that would then go through Snowden's Bush as well. So it's definitely on there as an investigation project.
And one last question. there's a group of residents in Brightwater who are very actively involved in this. And they're trying to set up a meeting with the council and DOC. Could I ask the staff to actually engage with this group? Anne Tooley is one, probably the leader. Could I ask that you discuss with Anne Tooley your update what the purpose of this CMP is about, and specifically Snowden's Bush? Thank you.
Confirmed.
Any other questions?
Oh, I'm happy to move it.
You happy to move it? Ian, have you had engagement with DOC? That would be the one question I'd be asked in the Snowden's Bush area.
Chair, no, I personally haven't, but there is old correspondence which I've recently come across. So they will be consulted as part of this next phase as well. So particularly that topic will come up, and we'll try and get these meeting together with all the relevant parties to investigate that.
Good. Councillor Ellis?
Thank you. Through you, Chair, I'm just curious about one of the recommendations is about having the questions set by the group manager. I'm just curious about some of the questions and the way that they're phrased. And I'm wondering, I'm talking about the draft questions on page 467, why we're looking at questions 8, 9 and 10, where I think it would be more useful to understand whether people were living in that area and how they're using that area, as opposed to what gender do they identify with. I'm just curious about why we've included those kinds of questions when I'm far more interested about finding out whether people are living in that area, how they're using that area, and what their goals are for that region. So I'm just curious about those questions.
Through the chair, I've picked those up directly from the Marvel questions. I haven't been back to comms yet to seek their advice on whether they regard those as appropriate for this area. I can certainly add more questions about where the people are from who are responding. But yes, I was waiting for this process to complete before I went
really
back to comms.
pleased to see them reviewed.
Very good feedback, Councillor. I think you're exactly appropriately right. All right, so I've got this moved by Councillor Kittermont. Councillor Ellis, are you happy to second? No other questions of the staff? If not, I'll put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Against? Carried. Thank you, everybody. And as I said, this is our last meeting. I'm now going to come across to the manager, who's going to close with say something before. The manager will say a couple of things before. I've already thanked them.
This feels like a leaving do, you know. With I just want to thank everyone in here. Firstly, Kit, just to reinforce your leadership. I know we differ on our football teams, but I've always found you really good to work with. And thanks to the wider team here, because you've, believe it or not, made a lot of decisions, and some really good decisions, I think, through this whole triennium. So I just want to thank you for that. Behind this, of course, is a group of talent we have in this organisation that provides you with, I think, good down-the-middle advice, which you agree or disagree with. But I always find that it's really a straight bat or team play here, and it comes because they've got a lot of experience. So I think it's really important for you to make good governance decisions, that you get the right information in a way that is absorbable. It's hard to apologise for the volume, because that's the nature of the beast, I'm afraid. It's just volume after volume. The other thing is, you know, you've got through a lot of backlog things that we've been trying to do for a long, long time. And I'm relatively new to this organisation. I've learnt a lot through this process as well, this triennium as well, in terms of the environmental side and the pressures this district's under. So I just want to thank you for that, because this is about taking the district forward. And for those leaving us, you know, good luck. I'm sure you'll love your retirement. And for those hopefully coming back, you know, we look forward to giving you even more paperwork next time. So On that, I'll just close with karakia. Ka whakaira te tapu, kia watia ai te ala, kia turaki whakataha ai, kia turaki whakataha ai, hui e takie.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Have a good afternoon.